Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely,
Right.
man. So I'm looking forward to peeling back the layers. You have so many interesting things going on, but before we get to that point, I want to know when we look at the calendar, it's March of 2024. 4 years ago, everything came to a grinding halt. How did
Mhm.
you get through the pandemic, and how did it change you?
So my business partners and I, for the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym that we own, we all have full-time jobs. It's kind of a hobby gym for all of us. Our rates are really low for the community, and that's one of the things we committed to doing was just making it really accessible. We don't do contracts and all that stuff. So it didn't change as much for me as it did for a lot of gym owners because we all had full-time incomes and we were just able to kind of keep that going. We literally just committed to like, we're just going to stay open and we're going to pay the bills ourselves. And if nobody comes, we'll just stay open for indefinitely, you know. So that was not as big of a change as it could have been for a lot of gym owners.
But that's smart, and that's why it's so good to have a sidekick because at the end of the day, no matter what happens, you have something intact. And I'm sure now that the storm has gone by, that it's
Yeah.
picked up and it's as viable as ever.
Yep, we're doing better than ever. You know, it's really interesting to see, you know, the community kind of rally around that. We just kind of just gutted it out and kept going, and it ended up working. So, you know, now we're gonna have our best year this year, finally. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, my son, he's on the spectrum, and he used to take this class called Battle Monkeys, and it was kind of an American Gladiator kind of thing. And it was this full gym, and it was a couple that used to work out of the community center. They finally got the money. They found this nice little area on the edge of town, and the pandemic totally closed it down. And every time I drive by, I still feel bad for him because that's the thing about a lot of people that, when it was their principal income, you couldn't do any of that face to face. I mean, one of the worst things that you could do at that time is have a bunch of people around exercising with everything coming out of the lungs is the way it was.
exactly. Yeah, that's one of the problems. You know, we only had to really shut down fully for you know, once or twice, and it was because we would start to see an outbreak or we'd start to see, okay, we got to, you know, somebody came in unsymptomatic, two or three people got sick, and we'd be like, all right, guys, we're just going to shut it down for, you know, 2 weeks and we'll circle back to it later.
Yeah, right.
And because we're all in our 40s and 50s, we were like, and we're going to get to rest and
Yeah.
stretch. Like,
So let me ask you this. You have a day job. This is kind of a side thing, so to speak. Let's get to the essence of what you do every day. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day. One of the kids is
cool.
curious and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
So I would say I run a retailer for you know for phone sales. Like I work for a major network in the US, and I used to run a couple of their locations, and I used to help their salespeople who were struggling to do better and to kind of figure out why they weren't performing at the level that they were. And that was my that was one of the other things that I did for that company. So I sold phones. I helped my team and my people that I managed to sell phones and work with that retailer. And I also helped their low performers to kind of figure out why they weren't doing better. And that's my day job.
Yeah, that's the day job. So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
My dream was to, you know, I think at that point, probably my dad was in the military and my uncle was in the military. My dream was to be in the military and, you know, and do special forces and actually got to try. So that was really cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So, talk to me a little bit about this love of jujitsu and how it's become a part of your life. How did you run into it? How did all of this kind of become who you are today?
So I grew up with you know, going from military base to military base and, you know, fighting in the 80s and 90s was just something that happened. You know, kids would grab you or whatever, and you just had to kind of figure it out. So you'd come home with, you know, beaten with sticks or whatever, and you're just like, well, that was a bad day, you know? And then I had you know, a brother who was an older brother who was, you know, not the sweetest. And so I learned really early on that you had to have kind of a physical boundary and the ability to incentivize people not to physically confront you. And that was something that I kind of leaned into later in life. And then I didn't really get into like the women's self-defense aspect Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and martial arts until um, I started finding out things about my own family, like my extended family, my cousins, and my different people that I was very, very close with, and a lot of my friends who were getting attacked. And so that sort of I leaned into that and started developing, self-defense programs for women and trying to offer those to the community as a free service. But really getting into jiu-jitsu was after I came back from Alaska, and I had gotten out of the military. I had always wanted to try, MMA, cage fighting. And so I found a gym here in Mansfield, Blossburg area in north central Pennsylvania, and started training with them and ended up having, three MMA fights. I was undefeated, but I realized at that point I couldn't get hit in the head anymore just because of my time in the military. It's like getting hit in the head is not on the menu for me.
Yeah.
So I stopped, and then I started leaning really hard into jujitsu.
So, who's been a hero and inspiration for you in your life?
I think for me, my dad and my uncle were my heroes. My uncle passed away, 18 years ago, or 17 years ago or something. But both of them were really formative for me, and kind of just seeing how hard my dad worked to support his family. That was something that I really um, latched onto and really idolized. And seeing the sacrifices that he and my mom made, 8 kids, so they had a
Oh, wow. Yeah.
yeah, they gave it all. So
Yeah, I imagine so. So let me ask you this. Of everybody alive on the planet right now, if you could meet one person that you find fascinating or interesting, who would that be?
it's a great question. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson is somebody that I've wanted to talk to for a long time. There's a lot of historical religious figures. Graham Hancock is another guy I really like a lot. His writing's fantastic. I think political leaders are kind of hard because they're always in flux. It's always 4 years this person, 8 years that person, 4 years this person. But yeah, I think there's a lot of incredible people globally that are doing really good work. Chris Hemsworth, you know, John Cena for the not for the WWE stuff, but for what he does with Make a Wish.
Yeah.
I think it's just absolutely heroic. There's just a lot of really great celebrities out there doing really cool work.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. You obviously are stretched pretty thin, I would imagine, with everything you're doing. What is the motivation for you every day to get up, to not only evolve as a person, but to help people and to keep, the job going by day, to keep the gym going, everything that you do, what is the motivation for you?
I think about that sometimes, and I don't really know how to answer it. It makes me feel like mental health struggles are real because I have the opposite of that where I don't really struggle with that, but I can imagine the opposite of that being true. You know what I mean? Like I can imagine like for me, like I get up every morning and I'm just like, it's another day to be alive. I've for me, gratitude is really, really important to me. And I don't say I've done a lot of work, but like in the military, I lost my memory, jumping out of that plane and hitting the ground and forgetting who I was and almost dying, obviously, and then kind of having to rebuild my personality. And I haven't really had a lot of bad days since then. Um, because it's just you get to this point where you're like, I should be dead.
Yeah.
And and so for me, I literally wake up and I'm just like, oh, nice. Like another day.
Yeah.
Coffee. It's great. Like it's the little things. And for me, my motivation is just I think that life is incredibly short and intensely beautiful, and we're very, very lucky to be here. And in that time, in almost like a utilitarian sense, I kind of just want to do the most good possible with the number of inhalations and pulses that are available to me. Like
Yeah.
that is it. I'm going to die before I do. What good can I do? Because it's really not about me and legacies and illusions. So while I'm here, who can I help? You know.
Yeah. That's so well said. So what other revelations did you get from realizing that you almost left this planet? Do you say yes more often? What kind of transpired after that?
So the biggest thing for me was that we're all inside of a story of who we are, And when that story gets interrupted or part of it gets erased and you have to kind of fill in the blanks, the important thing about that isn't what you write, it's that you are writing. And so it's the idea that, oh my God, like I can actually erase part of this and change it. The part that says I'm worthless, or the part that says I'm inadequate, or the part that says I'm Republican or Democrat or Christian or atheist or whatever. I can change that. Like I'm a bad partner. I'm a like you can change that. And actually one of the movies that made me cry the most in my life, it really tore me up, was I don't know if you've seen Kubo and the Two Strings.
No, huh?
It's just such a powerful movie. It's claymation. It's a cinematic masterpiece. The voice actors, it's just so powerful. And I won't say why, but at the end, if you watch the movie, you'll understand there's something to do with memory,
Yeah.
and there's something to do with how we remember ourselves. And one of the characters has a chance to re-remember themselves as somebody that they weren't. And it's really beautiful. It's really powerful.
Yeah, I need to totally take a look at that. And I love good animation. It just there's a level of it that they know they don't have a lot of time and they got to get to the point.
Yep. This is just it was great. You gotta check it out.
Totally. So let me ask you this. Of all of the things that you've done so far, what are you the proudest of?
That's a tough one. I would be remiss if I didn't say that I'm the most proud of my kids, because they are truly incredible people, and I'm super lucky to be their dad. But as far as me personally, um, I think it's a combination of, my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu achievements and being a black belt and all the students that I've been able to connect with and help. Um, and getting my master's degree in organizational leadership and concluding that and finishing that, which is something I never thought I was going to be able to do until I got much older, just because I did have kids so young. um there's building the R2L2 program and really figuring out that people are it's so much easier to help people than I thought. It's so much easier to reach down and give a hand to people than I originally thought. I thought that it was this complicated thing that took years and years and years, and actually it just ended up being, for me at least in my industry, it ended up being one quarter of like, hey, I care about you. Like, are you okay? What do you need from us? How can we help? Hey, here's some tips and tricks and mental techniques and mindset shifting that will assist you. And I mean, it was life changing. These people, was life changing, and I didn't realize it was that little effort was needed.
Yeah.
But those three things professionally, I think, are, for me at least, so far in life, professional accomplishments. If
Yeah.
you didn't say that, but I heard that, that's a me issue. So
Yeah. Yeah, 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 totally. So let me ask you this. You've obviously gone through a lot in your life. If you could go back, you have a dream tonight, you run into the 18-year-old version of you. You
mhm,
can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained, the life you've lived. What
mhm.
advice would you impart on that young version of you?
I would probably encourage him to be gentle with himself, like
Yeah.
more loving, because that's something I didn't find until I was so much older. And I was trapped in that, you know, typical like young athletic male idea of like adequacy through accomplishment. And like I can alleviate the deep unabiding shame, or perpetual shame that I'm feeling, and the struggle, by doing enough, being enough, having enough, achieving enough, getting noticed enough. um and I would just try my best to talk to that specific individual who doesn't feel like me. I saw a video of myself the other day at 19, and I was like, like, it's like I could see his facial expressions and everything, and I was like, we have nothing in common. Like, I was like, man, you're so angry and you're so trapped. So
Yeah.
just try to encourage him to be loving and to be gentle and to be more patient with my kids.
So probably in your line of work, you have to give people advice and being in
Mhm.
jujitsu and just in your role. What is the best advice that you've ever gotten?
That I've ever gotten. There was someone told me once to hold it with an open hand. Um, my old qigong teacher in college used to do this exercise where he would give us a pen or give us something, and he would tell us to hold on to it really tightly. And he'd try to pull it away, and then he would tell us to open our hand and kind of inspect it and look at it. And he would say like, how heavy is it, and what color is it, and what can you do with it, and and then he would say, all right, I'm gonna take it. And that was life, you
Yeah.
know, was like you can try to just cling to things because you're scared of them leaving. That's how you identify yourself. And you can be obsessed with retaining it and the control of it, or you can acknowledge the temporary nature of everything, and you can accept the impermanence and acknowledge that everything you have will leave and be taken from you, and then you can play.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
that was
that's deep, man.
that was something when I was 17. I ran into my Qigong teacher, 18 years old, and I always carried that with me, and it really informed my relationship to a lot of things,
Yeah.
people, relationships, experiences.
I had a friend of mine one time tell me a story about anxiety that he would get going to in-laws' house. And he said that someone gave him the advice of have no expectations.
Mm,
Just go into things with no expectations and you won't be disappointed no matter what
yeah.
happens. So, um, so let me ask you this. We get off this call,
Hmm.
time machine pulls up in front of your house. You can go to any place in the past in human history and see one event with your own eyes, or you can go into the future. Where are you going?
The past,
Okay.
for sure.
What do you want to see?
So one of the theories that I've been really obsessed with for the last few years, I've read quite a few books, I've been to Machu Picchu, and there's a lot of other ancient sites that I want to go visit. And I know that there's a lot of conspiracy theorists and aliens and all that stuff, but for me, I'm fascinated by one of the things that the gentleman I mentioned before, Graham Hancock, says is that we're a species with amnesia. There's a lot of evidence that there was advanced human civilizations 10, 20, 30,000 years ago. And we have no memory of that because of what they think was a global cataclysm that wiped out all megafauna in North America and different stuff. And what I would like to go back and do is really just go back to any ancient sites, um, like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, or um, uh, there's one site in Indonesia. I can't think of it, but it's a giant pyramid. It's like 25,000 years old. And I would love to go back and just see it and be like, what happened? What are you using to build these? Who are you? Like like we forgot,
Yeah.
and so we have no memory of that. Our we thought that, 6,000 years ago was when city states started emerging, and now they're like, yeah, no, it's way, way further back than that. So I'd love to go back and see them build the pyramids of Giza or the Sphinx, actually. If I
Yeah.
could go back and witness the construction of the Sphinx, that would answer a lot of questions.
Absolutely, it would, for sure. So, Vince, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, all of your clients, colleagues, everyone around you, but you run the show. What's your
Mhm.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
So it's funny because I'm 6'5" and I forget that regularly. And for me, when I'm when I'm talking to somebody who's 5'4" or 5'2" or 5'7", I don't know that I'm taller than them until I'm reminded by like a photograph or something. For me, like we're making eye contact, like we're the same. And so I don't see myself as I am. I see myself just as like another person.
Yeah.
Um, I see myself as a beginner in jiu-jitsu. It's kind of like I know that I'm good. I've been to the tournaments and I've won, and I know that I know where I am relative to others, but I still feel like a beginner.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I said to one of my friends, the other day was, I feel like 70 years as a human is just enough to become a novice. Like,
True.
it's just enough to become a novice. We're like, oh, I figured out how to talk to people and how to be nice and how to love myself and how to have a job and show up and, do all the things and have a routine, and then it's over. And so like we don't really get enough time to we get so much time, but I wish we had so much more time to perfect the art of being human. And so for me, I see myself as a beginner. I see myself as somebody who's just starting out and just figuring things out. And a lot of people see me as the authority, and I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
Well, so
Yeah,
that's the difference.
it's funny you talking about kind of the timeline of humans and how we've evolved. I always think about cosmos when they compartmentalize the history of the universe and how tiny, infinitesimally tiny
Yeah,
our shadow is on this whole
yeah.
landscape. It's amazing. Um, it actually puts a lot into perspective to think about just kind of what our legacy is and who we are and what we're trying to do. So,
There's a
um,
really great video called Pale Blue Dot by Carl Sagan.
yeah,
That also, and on the wrong day will get me emotional too if I'm watching that.
yeah,
Um, just it's so beautiful. Yeah, it's a famous speech by Carl Sagan where he talks about the picture that I think it was Voyager turned and took of the Earth, and the
yeah,
Earth is just a speck of dust.
yeah.
It looks like a speck of dust in a sunbeam,
Wow.
and it's the furthest picture that's ever been taken and then beamed back to Earth, and it's just really powerful. His
Yeah,
dialogue about that, and after his life of researching the cosmos.
that's amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out, and I also need to check out, an
Kubo,
what is it? What is it again?
Kubo and the Two Strings.
Kubo?
Yep, it's Kubo, Kubo and the Two Strings.
Okay. All
I
right.
think
I
Matthew
love this.
McConaughey was in it, as a voice actor.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna look that up. That's really good and encourage everybody else to do the same. So, hey, man, this has been fascinating, Vince. Thank you so much. If anyone wants to reach out, get involved with your gym, learn more about you, anything about your world, how do they do that?
So I just had a website this past year developed, vincenance.com. You can follow me on, Facebook, YouTube. I'm going to be putting more and more videos out, but I actually wanted to thank you, and just shout you out, and to any of your listeners, anybody that's engaging with this interview. Um, if you just take just the questions you asked are really fascinating, and so um, if I was listening to this, I would probably just pause it before I answered, and think for myself, what would I answer this as? Because it is good fuel for, gaining a different perspective on self. So thanks, man.
Yeah, man, it's been my pleasure. You're fascinating. Thank you so much for your story. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Joe. Take it easy, man.
You too. Have a good day.